Senior living operators face a complex set of challenges. How do you stay ahead of the pack? Listen in to From Leads to Leases, a CCR growth podcast for expert solutions that transform problems into opportunities. And maybe someday soon you'll partner with us to generate $1.5 million and up in additional revenue per community in just 12 months. All right. Welcome back to another episode of From Leads to Leases, the podcast where we dive deep into the senior living industry, offering insights, strategies, and stories from the experts at the forefront. I'm your host, Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth, here to guide you through the evolving landscape of connecting communities with the families and residents they serve. So today we have a special guest, Christina Palmieri. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, great. Founder and CEO of Olive Branch Senior Living Advisors. Christina has an inspiring journey from her beginnings in sales to becoming the #1 memory care sales producer in the country, and then launching her own senior care placement business. Her unique hands-on approach includes an elder law attorney, guardian, a nurse, and even a realtor to ensure families find the best care and solutions for their loved ones. Christina is revolutionizing how families approach senior care placement, and we're excited to learn how she's making it all happen. So in this episode, we'll explore her transition from corporate senior living to starting Olive Branch, dive into the common pitfalls families face when seeking care for loved ones, and discuss Christina's innovative approach to senior care advisory. So welcome to the show, Christina.
Thank you. I'm super glad to be here.
Yeah, this will be a great conversation. I love how you're incorporating so many different aspects of what goes into kind of like finding senior care and then helping somebody with placement. So I'm definitely interested in learning more about your whole entire process. But your background in sales, I want to kind of start there because you've had a unique journey. So it spans different industries. You've gone through everything like tanning and recruiting and then senior living. So what was the turning point that led you to pursue a career in senior living?
Oh, I kind of fell into it, actually. I was doing marketing and sales, business to business, and I kind of reached the ladder. It was a family-owned company, 4 generations, amazing company. I learned a lot. I had a really, really great mentor. But I just wanted to do more, and I didn't see it happening within that establishment. And so went on Indeed and put my resume out there and ended up getting contacted by Brookdale. And I was like, gosh, this is kind of different. Should I try to do it? And you actually needed a bachelor's degree, which I did not have. And since COVID hit, I thought I'd take advantage of the opportunity.
Sure.
Well, I ended up falling in love with it. Fell in love with the seniors, fell in love with trying to find them some of purpose and belonging and giving them the best end of life. Experience was so huge to me. So, and after being there, I believed in what I was doing and I loved it. So I ended up being good at it. Ended up #1 out of 700 locations in memory care several times. And I was just, I mean, to me, it wasn't going to a job. I just loved what I did. And then I started having referral sources come in, which I love my referral sources. And I was like, I think things could be done a little differently. And I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder. It wasn't for me. And that would have been the next step. And I just kind of wanted to venture out and do my own thing and see how I could make a difference in the different patterns of referrals.
Now we come to you being the CEO and founder of Olive Branch. So what does your day-to-day role entail since you have this team that you've put together? What does that look like? And how do you balance all of the moving pieces of your business?
Well,
try to, right?
I'm still learning. I have an amazing team. So, I mean, my main thing is I'm still helping with placement because our team is so new right now. So helping with the calls, helping with placement, holding hands with my team through the process to make sure that we are so dialed in what we're doing and that we don't miss a step. So I would say I'm just kind of the extra layer right now and just kind of showing everybody how things are done, which is going to happen for a while, but I love what I do. And I mean, I get to hang out with people I love and help other people. So, I mean, how do you balance when you're having fun?
Yeah,
You can just have
it
too
doesn't
much
even
fun,
really
right?
feel like work to some degree, right? You're just enjoying it.
Right.
So, yeah, I could see that. What would you, in terms of the industry, what do you think are the biggest challenges that families face when searching for the right senior living community?
I would say one thing that I've noticed is really diving in to ask the right questions because there's lots of communities or adult family homes that are the brand new shiny penny. They look nice.
Yeah.
They just, had a $10 million renovation. Mom might like it there, but do they have care? How many times have they changed ownership? I think is huge. Also, I think it's a really big deal to make sure that when you're looking for a place, that there's other people that are similar age and background interests so that your loved one can socialize and thrive. I think that's huge. I don't think families are asking that. I think families are really overwhelmed. One of the big cringe moments is when a family, let's say they have a certain amount for mom or dad, and they don't know that when they run out of money, that when they go on to Medicaid, they have to leave. So asking spend down questions, um, I think is really huge. But I mean, it's really diving in to find the right place because a lot of families might be in denial while mom has early stage dementia.
Yeah.
I'd want to make sure that if, let's say, someone has early onset dementia, what kind do they have? Do they need to go into an actual memory care? Or, families are thinking, okay, if we just do assisted living and they don't have a memory care, mom's going to be fine there. So that's why we also have a nurse that comes in and does an assessment as well.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the most powerful pieces of that is determining the right level of care right out of the gate. A lot of families are kind of in denial when it comes to where their loved one is at, and what level of care they might need. And a lot of people from the conversations I've had, and specifically with placement advisors, it sounds like a lot of families wait until they wait too long. They should have done this 6 months or a year earlier, and now they're in a situation where their options are so much fewer than they would have had if they had gotten their family member into a community sooner. And just because like the quality of life, right? Like the quality of life they're having at home, especially if, for my example, like my parents live all the way across the country. I don't really know what's going on at home. Like they're in their mid 70s and they say they're doing fine. But like if I was there on the ground and I was witnessing it firsthand, would I feel the same way? Or would I be like, hey, it's time. You guys can't be walking up and down those 3 flights of stairs anymore. Like we're done. Like we gotta figure something else out here. I think having those conversations sooner than later is super important.
It is, and it's hard conversations. I mean,
Yeah.
it's extremely difficult. Nobody wants to take anyone's independence away.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with another advisor recently, and she was saying you only have one set of parents or maybe two sets of parents, right? So like you only really have just a few opportunities to get it right. And nobody really knows about these things until they're faced with them. So it's not like we weren't educated about this in school, and our jobs don't teach us anything about senior living unless you work in the industry. So everybody's pretty ignorant to what the options are out there. And then if you're just someone randomly searching online, then the options just become so overwhelming. How do you even know what's good and what's not good, and what sites are reputable and which ones aren't? So I think placement advisors are just becoming more and more and more critical to the infrastructure and like the ecosystem of senior living to ensure that seniors get the proper placement that they deserve right out of the gate.
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I know a lot of people, they say the placement advisors were like the second person they called, right? Like the first one was like a place for mom or something like that. And then they're like, we should have just called you guys right away.
A
So
place for mom gives us a bad rap.
they do. We were talking a little bit about your team, so I'm curious to just learn more about how you've integrated all the different components and why you chose those specific roles to be a part of Olive Branch. So you've got the elder law attorney, you've got a guardian, a nurse, and even a realtor on your team.
So when I was in a community at
Hmm.
Brookdale, I would have families come up to me and they're already overwhelming. Some people were grieving people that are still alive, needing to find placement. But there's so many moving pieces because, like you said, they don't teach you this in school. So, do I need an elder law attorney? Do I need a guardian? Oh, well, I don't have money, but I have a home to sell. And that's when I was thinking, I was like, how can I get better? What can I do to make it so it's almost like a one-stop shop so we can encompass everything under one umbrella and hold the family's hand through the process? And so I started thinking, I'm like, okay, we definitely need an elder law attorney because that is extremely important when it comes to finance and family and homes, everything else. We needed a guardian because there are a lot of instances where there's folks in the hospital that don't have a POA or have family, or quite frankly, the husband might be sick of seeing a $12,000 bill every single month. He's going to have a heart attack from it. So give it to someone else that you trust and let
Yeah,
him pay the bills and, make sure everything's okay. When it comes to a nurse, she's absolutely fabulous. She is our extra layer. So let's say we have somebody in the hospital and they're waiting guardianship, or they're just waiting till they get to a point to be stable to discharge. She goes in there and builds trust with the resident and sees their progression and their journey before we place. And I build trust with the actual family member. So then we're really teaming up together to make sure that it's an easy transition. Then we have a realtor, and she comes from 6 years in hospice. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. We all know if you can do hospice, you're an angel on earth. And so she's
absolutely.
kind of like an angel on earth realtor. And so she has helped me in so many ways. So she can come in, she can buy a house, close it, cash offer within 10 days. So let's say, mom or dad has a home, but they don't have any money. She can come in, make sure that closes so we can get them care right away. She can also sell it, which is nice. And so it's just really working together as a team and working quickly and making sure we're working as a well-oiled machine to make sure that it's easy for the family. And so when you have everything in one office, it just makes it so there's not doubt. They can ask questions, they can come in if they want. Yeah, it just, in my mind, it makes sense to do it this way.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that families don't realize either is that how fast the timeline is, right? Like sometimes people have a very, very short window to get a lot of things figured out. And so the fact that you have the team that can figure out, you know, assessing someone in terms of the level of care they need, and then maybe helping with their home and the sale of their home, which is huge for a lot of people, especially the baby boomer generation who, had most of them, a lot of them are homeowners, and there's a lot of equity that they can put into their retirement community. I think that's such a great offer that you have on your team. What are your thoughts on the housing industry in general for seniors? Because the number of seniors entering the space is far greater than the number of beds, for lack of a better word, that are available right now. And even if the industry, recent data from like March said that even if every construction project was completed between now and 2026, that would only account for about 33% of the housing that's going to be needed for the number of seniors entering the market. And then we know that between now and 2030, the number of older adults entering the market is supposed to double and then almost triple by 2040. So what are your thoughts on how the industry can help with placement? I guess from a placement side, because I know from like the provider side, I mean, the solutions are let's build more communities, or repurpose old buildings or find different alternative ways to. But I mean, ultimately, like we're talking about somebody's like last place to call home. We want it to be a great option for them. And if there's not enough housing, then it's like, even if you can afford the Ritz Carlton, but all that's available is a Motel 6, like what kind of quality of life is that going to be for somebody?
That's, a great question. I think that there needs to be a lot more incentive when it comes to nursing for schooling. I think that that's going to be
Yeah.
huge, having people be able to do in-home care for if, if they have that type of insurance and money for that. So I think that's also good. But I really think where this is going is adult family homes. So in Spokane with our market, we have over 400 adult family homes. And I just think that that's where it's going because, like you mentioned, like communities, the beds are going to be filling up, but it's also always like this in the communities. When I was at Brookdale, we would have, we would be 100% full, but we could have a month where we lost 7 people. And so if you think of all the communities and what they're doing, I think it's hard to wrap your head around how you're going to continually be able to help seniors that need care. But I think it's going to be a mix between in-home care and adult family homes. One of the things that I've seen is a lot of adult family homes will take straight Medicaid, which is huge
Oh yeah,
because
that's
yes, we have
nice.
people with homes and we have people that have money, but we also have people that are on Medicaid. And it's like, where are they supposed to go? Because some of the places that we had available, let's say 5 years ago, I wouldn't put my dog in. And so now there's all these beautiful homes, and the state is starting to incentivize making sure that they get paid for having people with Medicaid in their homes. So you can get a higher allotted amount. So I think that's going to be huge. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be it's going to be interesting where that goes.
Would adult family homes, would that be more like a micro community of some kind, or for the wider audience who may not really be aware of what that is, what would an adult family home entail?
So there's good adult family homes and there's bad adult family homes. So some of them are just wanting to have people come in there and, their CNAs, they take care of them to get
Okay.
paid. Now, there's some really nice ones. And so an adult family home is pretty much a home with other people that need care. There's usually a nurse practitioner that comes in. There's care staff. There's meals. They are really upping their game where they're starting to do activities or take them places. But pretty much it's more of a smaller setting. And a lot of people might like that coming from a home to go to another home instead of going to a community. So, I mean, it just kind of depends and where they are. And a lot of adult family homes can offer higher levels of care, which is nice. So, for instance, we have an amazing cul-de-sac of adult family homes. This lady did brand new ones. I think there's 13 of them. There's 6 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. There's someone there constantly, home
Hmm.
cooked meals. I mean, they're just beautiful. So they're starting to get a way better reputation.
And that seems way more practical. I mean, like boutique senior living, right? Compared to like having to
Hmm.
build a massive community with like 300 units in it. The time that takes compared to, oh, let's just convert this home to a place that's, that's safe mobility wise for older adults to get around in, but also like, that there could be live-in care that stays there with them. Would that typically be for, like you were saying, like higher levels of care? Would it typically be for memory care and skilled nursing, or have you seen them with maybe just assisted living, or maybe just independent living, where it's just a group of seniors who are just looking to simplify, right, and like all
Golden
live?
Girls.
Yeah, yeah.
So most of the time it's going to be, a little bit higher level of care.
Mm-hmm.
And a higher level of care doesn't necessarily mean dementia. It could be someone who has, heart complications or diabetic or oxygen or something along those terms. Now, when it comes to assisted living, those can be really, really great for folks for socialization. I mean, even independent. I'm a huge fan of independent. So let's say a spouse passes away and the wife is just in this house. Well, she's in her 70s. She still wants to go to happy hours or, go to a book club or hike in a group. And so then they have people there that are wanting to do the same thing, that have similar interests. So you still have that socialization, which is huge. You need socialization. You have to have it, because one of the biggest declines is when you isolate. So I also am a fan of, I love adult family homes, but let's say someone's independent. It's really nice too if there's a place that they can transition into assisted. So they don't have to move again. So it just kind of depends where they are, in their journey.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing I know for my situation with my parents being in their mid 70s. If and when the day comes that they finally decide that they're ready to make some transition of some kind, I would want to be able to find a place that would allow them to kind of like move through the different levels of care if that's needed, because I think that would be the worst thing for them. They built our house in like 1987. My dad's like, I'm not moving until, somebody pulls me out of this place. And then like for them to go live in a senior community, but then potentially like a couple years later have to move again because of they need a higher level of care. Like that would be probably the worst case scenario. So I think trying to find something where they could just stay in that community for the foreseeable future would be the best case scenario.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
assisted does a good job. And usually in assisted, it's people that are tenured. It's usually memory care. That's pretty wishy-washy with the care, because it's a very hard job what people do, and taking care of people and, having to get close to them and see them pass away. And so I understand, if people don't stick with that. But with assisted living, I feel like you're going to see a lot more of the same faces.
Yeah. And back to what you were saying too about the isolation aspect of it too. There was a data point that I read a while back that said older adults who are around, what was it? At 65, they spend on average 2 hours a day alone. And then by the age of 80, it was up to 6 hours on average a day alone. And usually that's because they've lost their partner, right? Their spouse has passed on, so now they're spending a lot more time by themselves. But just that's a lot of time for anyone to spend alone, but let alone someone whose circle of and social spheres keeps getting smaller and smaller as time goes on. I know, I mean, I'm 45 and like I've already seen like over the decades, like my social circle has gotten smaller, so I can only imagine in the next 4 decades how that's going to change for me. And I think the socialization aspect is so important.
It really is. I mean, everyone needs sense of purpose and belonging.
Yeah.
And I mean, just having that interaction. I read some study somewhere that a senior being alone and isolated is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
That's how damaging it is to, health and decline.
I believe that. When my grandmother passed away, this was probably like 12, 15 years ago now. When my grandmother passed away, my mother made the decision to take my grandfather in and be his caretaker, and he had a little bit of trouble getting around. He had bad knees, so like he needed a little bit of assistance, but he was reasonably mobile, no cognitive decline, like he was in good health there. But like within 6 months of like living with my mom and my dad, I mean, he was like a totally different person, because his social circle went from out here to zoop, it was like just my parents, and they became his everything. And they went and they left for work for the day, so he was stuck at home watching TV for 8 hours, and then they would come home and they'd have a little bit of conversation with him, and that was it. There were other things that started to pop up, like he started to become incontinent. He had severe like mobility issues because he was sitting all day. So my mom eventually decided we have to find a place for him where he can thrive again. And I mean, within weeks of like moving into an assisted living community, it was like night and day. Like he was like the social butterfly. Like he was completely back to his old self, you know. So like that socialization piece is huge. They don't really think about that because of the guilt that they feel. You know, my mom felt so guilty when my grandmother died. She couldn't imagine putting him in a place, even though it was like such a great community that he ended up living in. So really, like families really do have to get over that and just think about what's best for their loved one.
I think, kind of what the misconception is if I'm going to place my loved one in a home, I'm selfish. I don't want to take care of them
Yeah.
because culturally, for decades and decades, we take, it's just naturally we take care of them. But I think what really needs to start being on the forefront is if you're doing that, you're actually selfless because you're giving them their life back. You're kind of knowing what they need when they don't, kind of what they did for you growing up, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I look at it as, it's not fair for caregiving burdens. It's not fair for, a son to be a caregiver. I think a son should be able to be a son and that it should be left to the professionals to be able to care accordingly how they need that. But then also, yeah, that socialization is, I mean, it's just amazing. And it's not what it used to be. There's a stigma. So when you put someone in a home, it was nasty. It was gross. It looked like a hospital, almost like a psych ward type thing. But now it's way different. Like they're catered towards that generation. There's activities. People are thriving in them. And so I think it's just kind of getting over that stigma.
I think it's interesting too that in this country we've just been brought up with this idea of like when we age we get sent away, right? Like I had a recent guest on who she's never lived in America, but she has a lot of experience working with dementia, and everybody in the countries that she's spent time in, it's all family. Like everybody lives, it's multi-generational homes. You know, that's just the expectation that when somebody ages that their family is going to take care of them. So I think it's interesting that like it's such a difficult decision for us to make, and sometimes, you know, part of us is like we shouldn't be caretakers, and then the other part of us is like the guilty side is like, no, you should be like your parents took care of you for how many years, like you can take care of them in their later years. But I think it's true too that in the United States, like we definitely built a senior living industry that does cater to the lifestyles now of people of a certain generation. So I think like baby boomers are starting to see that now, that it's not just about retirement living anymore. Like you don't have to be retired to live in a senior community. Like it's just about being around like-minded people, right? And people of your age and your decade, and your, you know, they have similar beliefs and values and everything like that. And you know, you see like a lot of people now that they're still working. Like I recent statistic, I just did a podcast about ageism in America, and it's like over 20%, 25% of people over the age of 65 are still working in the workforce. And then even people who are living in senior living communities, anywhere from 10 to 20% within independent living communities are still contributing somewhat to the workforce, either you know, part-time or as like a consultant or freelancer or something like that. So they still want to contribute to society. They don't want to be put in a building and forgotten about. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned through this process.
No, that makes sense. That does. And in that sense of purpose, like my stepdad, he's retired and they live in a 55 and older community, but all of a sudden now he's assistant manager. It's like, you go, Dad. If that's what you want to do. I'm like,
yeah,
what does that entail? But it makes him feel good, right? He gets to go around and make sure, you know, the lights screwed in, or, you know, stuff like that. So it's exciting.
Yeah. No, I think it is. I think as long as somebody's physically and mentally able to do it, I mean, it's healthy to want to do those things. I can't imagine just sitting around all day, you know, not really having much desire to do much. Like both my grandfathers did that. Both my grandmothers passed before my grandfathers, which was interesting. But and then they just sat around and did nothing. Like they literally watched TV all day for like that's not the life that that I would envision. And one of a previous guest said, like, okay, if you look at their life and it looks boring to you, it's probably boring to them. Like, so you should probably like find ways to engage with them more and get them more active in their communities and out doing things like they used to do when they were younger. So I think that was another kind of like eye opener for me too. Like if I'm over here judging that like what they're doing is boring, they're probably bored too. You know, they probably just don't know where to go or what to do. You know, to
So
pass the
true.
time. Being in marketing and advertising and as a growth agency, I mean, with your experience in sales and kind of like the marketing side of senior living, I know you've taken kind of a multi-channel approach using like social media, traditional methods like mailers. So how do you decide where to focus your efforts and what advice do you have for others trying to build their brand in senior living?
I'm a firm believer in be in front of everybody as much as you can. For me, I think targeting, for the mailers 55 and older communities, you can do targeted
Hmm.
demographics. I think that's huge. Just to make sure that even if they're seeing your face, so they're going to trust, what you do. So if they need something later on, you're there. I think that, social media is also a big deal to show that you're active, but also being present in the community, going to different events, being a part of networking events, showing people that you're there, that you're walking the walk and talking the talk. And so I would just say the more you're in front of everybody, the more someone's going to remember you. So, I mean, one of my stories is Numerica is a credit union here in Spokane. It's a pretty well-known one. And so when I was younger, I was like, okay, how am I going to get a car? Well, I need to go get a loan for a car. Well, I kept getting these mailers from Numerica. I heard them on the radio. I saw them on commercials. And I was like, they must be it. So I ended up going through them. And so I always think like that. I'm like, the more you're in front of people, the more they're going to trust your brand. And so, and that's just kind of what I'm going with is just trying to really, Spokane is a small town, but big city. And so just really trying to balance that out, making sure that if you're going to do mailers, do targeted mailers for targeted demographics. Don't do it one time, do it more than one time. Going to different events and podcasts and
Yeah,
stuff like
I
that.
like podcasts. That makes sense. Yeah, and I think a good piece of advice too is to not kind of spread yourself out too thin. Like if you are targeting a specific area, to make sure you kind of build awareness in that area. Like you're focused on Spokane for now, but it's not something you're obviously going to branch out from there as the word gets out and as your team continues to grow. What are the next steps for Olive Branch? What are you looking to do next?
Well, I brought on a couple more people that I'm training right now
Mm,
to just get a really solid team. I don't want to grow too fast too soon because I don't want to make mistakes because these are people's lives.
yeah.
So just taking kind of, it's a marathon, not a sprint approach, and making sure those people are really dialed. I think it would be really great to partner with some of the colleges eventually for nursing schools to have, nurses be able to come on and do assessments as internships. Also, that will
Super
kind of help
smart.
the
Yeah.
hospitals around here. So that's a whole other thing that me and my nurse actually came up with last night. But eventually, we're going to go into Seattle and we have North Idaho right next to us. So we're already kind of dipping our toes in North Idaho because it's literally, I can be to Coeur d'Alene in 30 minutes.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of people over in North Idaho that actually are coming to Spokane because there's a lot more care here. But really just the surrounding areas. So growing a team, making sure we're solid, and then going over probably to the west side of this.
That's interesting. You mentioned the nurses and interning like that. I think that's a really innovative approach. And I know that staffing, I mentioned housing being a challenge earlier, but I know staffing is probably as great a challenge because most communities are already short staffed. And then it's not just the communities, but it's also the hospitals too. You've got, I think recent data said like 54,000 senior living communities across all levels of care, plus all the hospitals that are all in, short staffed as well. So I'm like, how are we filling that need across the country? Like, I don't know how we're going to do that.
I don't know either. It's bad. I mean, people are having to be in hallways and swing beds. They're short staffed. And so that's why I'm trying to really talk to the discharge planners in the hospital to be like, I'm your partner in this. You don't have time to go and find placement. And if you heard that there's a nice place, you're sure the heck not going and vetting it and walking through it and checking it out. So it's
Yeah.
like, use me as a resource so I can make, your life a little easier because I mean, one of the challenges is trying to get people out of the hospital. It's a complete mess. And I feel bad for them. I know that, all the workers work really, really, really hard. And I appreciate all of them.
Yeah. And that's just a bad situation for the senior to be in a situation like that, and for a longer than they need to be. So the sooner, but I know, like I said earlier, like that, it can be such a fast process sometimes. Like they'll try to discharge somebody and they need to find a place, for them to go like within a couple of days. And how is anyone supposed to do that on their own? So I think that's why someone like you coming into the picture is so critical.
Thank you. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I have team members that are boots on the ground constantly. So they're vetting these places. So even if I went to one of the communities down the street a month ago, that doesn't mean if I go, tomorrow, it's going to be staffed the same and look the same. So I have people literally going in kind of like secret shoppers, but they're not actually buying anything or, they're just going in and they're being like, okay, things are still looking good. They're staffed like this. So when we do have those emergency discharges, we already know. I don't want to place someone where there's surprises and then all of a sudden they're short staffed and they have to go back to the hospital because something happened. So we want to make sure that we're keeping them out of the hospital.
Yeah. So how do you keep track of that? I mean, how do you keep track of all the communities that you could potentially place someone in, and all of their, I mean, are you aware of like who has vacancies and who doesn't, and how do you keep track of that?
Well, just being out there and asking
Yeah.
questions, and just constantly touring. And we have a kind of like a data platform that we do to kind of keep everything, this is where their occupancy is right now. This is their pricing right now. This is their care staff right now. And so my fiance came from banking and finance. And so he's kind of the operations, which I'm not good at. He's good. So he does all of the operational stuff and then I do all the other things. So he has a sheet made for us and then we just constantly update it because we want to be in those communities. I'm going into the assisted living in communities and bringing them coffees or, dropping stuff off, cool stuff, not dumb stuff like some people do. And so it's, we're just having
Pens with
conversations
your
and
name
asking
on
those
it.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I think my last question for you would just be, what advice would you give to senior living providers who want to create stronger partnerships with advisory services like yours?
I would say take advantage of the referral sources. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all in it for the same reason and we all have the same end goal. And just always keep at the forefront that it's about the senior, making sure that they have the best end of life experience and the best care, and that what we're doing is right by the family. And we're building relationships and maintaining them. And if we're able to do that with each other, then we can build a stronger community and be in the know of what's going on. So, I mean, communication, maintaining relationships, and really utilizing, what people are good at. If I'm good at finding placement and you're good at being a nurse or a discharge planner, you be good at a nurse and a discharge planner, and I'll be good at placements.
Yeah.
And then
Know your
things
role.
will work more efficiently, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess, in a sense, building relationships and staying good at what you're good at and not trying to spread yourself thin.
Yeah. That's good advice. And then I guess that's a two-part question. So that's for the providers, but what about for the family? So what would be some tips for to help them find the right care and avoid common mistakes?
Sure. Start being proactive. Just because you're making calls or talking to somebody, be proactive. What does this look like in 6 months? If I am going to eventually in a year find mom or dad care, should I get an attorney? Should we have trust in place? Should we, start looking at different places, just checking them out, having something in mind? And so I would say the number one thing a family can do is be proactive, reach out, ask questions, because if you bury your head in the sand and you wait for something bad to happen, it's going to be a complete mess. It's a fixable mess, but it is a big mess, and it can be a lot less stressful and better planned out if you start having conversations sooner than later. And another thing is, like you had mentioned, how people are waiting longer and longer. That's taking away from them being able to utilize what some of these communities are able to offer, like the socialization and activities. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're checking in on your loved ones, and that, are they being social? How are things going? But, definitely being proactive and not waiting till the last minute.
Yeah, I agree. That's great advice. Thank you. So, Christina, as we wrap up, how can our audience stay connected with you and Olive Branch to continue learning from your insights?
So you can go to my website, olivebranchsla.com.
Okay.
You can also reach out via email, Christina@olivebranchsla.com. And any questions at all, I'm always happy to have conversations, bounce ideas. I'm always learning. So.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming on today. Thanks for sharing all this great information with us and taking time out of your day. Our audience is going to be super grateful for this episode, I'm sure. So I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Christina Palmieri for joining us and sharing her valuable insights into the world of senior care placement. Christina's unique approach of blending healthcare, legal expertise, and financial guidance into one service is truly making a difference for families across the region. If you want to stay connected with Christina and learn more about Olive Branch Senior Living Advisors, be sure to visit their website at olivebranchsla.com and keep an eye on their future initiatives. And I'll make sure I put all that in the show notes so you guys can stay connected. As always, we hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the dynamic world of senior living marketing and sales. Also, remember that From Leads to Leases isn't just an audio experience, we're also a video podcast. So if you want to see video versions of our episodes, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube and our Spotify channels. I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. Thanking you for joining us on From Leads to Leases, where we're giving you all of these great senior living industry insights for free and asking nothing in return other than for you to like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. Until we chat again, lead with strategy and with heart. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Explore more at ccrgrowth.com. At CCR Growth, we've developed the Senior Growth Innovation Suite to unlock an additional $1.5 million and up in revenue per senior living community within a year. We specialize in generating quality leads, expediting sales, and reducing acquisition costs. Let's connect soon.